you are going to be listening soon to another edition of Blewetts Blitz. Get the podcast app back running up, hopefully very, very soon. Got the login, so you should be able to listen to these. Starting with this episode, obviously, Nania boasting the New York Knicks.
Yes.
Is that a Nobi jersey or whatever his name is? Yeah, OG. Yeah, that is. Now, is that newly purchased, or is that
no?
Was that already in the closet?
Okay. I had this. Was it purchased from the official NBA website or another official website? No, it was not. But it was in my closet well before yesterday. So I have been a Knicks fan for more than 2 months, unlike a lot of people on social media. So
I was gonna ask that, because I really don't have many teams that like people have been on the bandwagon for, minus like a little bit of the Nets for a little while, even though that flamed out really quickly. The Devils, when they were good, I was so little, I wasn't on social media or anything like that. But is that part, like, that has to be a little bit annoying to see like either celebrities jumping on the bandwagon who have never been there, or even like fans. Like, I've seen a few people who are Nets and Knicks fans like now claiming that they're only Knicks fans and stuff. So I'm sure that's a little bit of part of the annoyance, is like the people trying to jump on and kind of steal some of your happiness. Yeah,
a little bit, because like you said, it's similar for me. I've never had a team that would warrant that, people jumping on the bandwagon. So I mean, I think there's something to, like, especially if you live in the city, like maybe it's a city pride thing. Like, a lot of people are, just excited to see it happening. But like, when I see videos and a whole plane is watching the Knicks game and everyone cheering, I'm like, the Knicks have never been this much of a hot topic. Like, where were you when we had Enes Kanter and Frank Ntilikina and all these bums that we were watching? And the Garden was alive in April for Mario Hezonja blocking LeBron when we had 10 wins. Like, it sounds a little bothersome, but it is. It feels like, maybe it's a biased perspective because I'm following it and I'm a Knicks fan, but it does feel like this is as much as the finals has been kind of like a national conversation since at least like LeBron versus the Warriors, but maybe even above that. And I think that's really cool, and it's deserved for the Knicks fans who have been through this a lot longer than I have. My dad, I got my Knicks fandom from my dad, and he was there all throughout the 90s. And their last championship win was actually a couple months before he was born. So, like, not just for me, but like all Knicks fans, I think it's deserved that this championship has been like happening, and the championship pursuit has been happening in such like a really exciting way, and is such a national thing. So I think that's cool, even if there's a lot of bandwagoners with it.
Yeah, the ultimate hate watch. Again, I cannot root for the Knicks. I just can't do it. You'll never find. Not many New York teams root for other New York teams, right? Like, if you're a Yankees fan, you don't root for the Mets. Like it's very few and far between you find that. But specifically when you have Knicks versus Nets, like Knicks, throw out an arbitrary number, whatever it is, Knicks probably have 95% of the fan base in New York, and I'm the other 5%. So we get shit on all the time. I feel like the Nets just always catch strays for absolutely no reason. So there's no way I could root for the Knicks. It's just impossible for me to. With that being said, I am happy for the Knicks fans who are also Jets fans. But being realistic, like, people have asked me, can you root for the Knicks? Like, not a chance in hell. Like, I hope they lose. I'm sorry. I hope they lose the next 3 games. I can't, dude. Like, I was screaming at De'Aaron Fox when he didn't dribble that ball out with, was it 17 seconds when he stole that ball and he tried to go for the layup? Yeah, that and the Wemby at the end of the game too. I understand the Knicks have been getting hosed with some of the calls, and some of the calls, like, both ways, have been so dirty. I like physicality in the NBA, but I also don't like Wemby trying to kick out. Was that OG's leg on that one play? Yeah. And then who's the backup, like, point guard for you guys, who's like trying to grab his leg and like tip him over. Yeah, like some of that stuff I don't really enjoy about this series, but it's been fun to watch, no doubt. The Nets are just so far away. It's just like basketball doesn't even matter to me right now. It's just they're, the Nets trade for all their picks back from the Rockets, and then they end up with the 6th and 8th overall picks in those last 2 drafts. They're not going to get any homegrown superstar. It's really frustrating, but nonetheless, congrats to all the Knicks fans out there. Again, this should be available in podcast form if all the login info I got was correct. I will be back bi-weekly now. I was off for about a month or so. I wrapped up all of my reviews. I put it out on Twitter. 61 reviews total this offseason. I think about 40 of those are Jets players. So there will continue to be reviews almost every day that are coming out from me and Nania, who helps me get those out. So look out for that if you're really intrigued about like the niche guys of the roster, from Dane Belton and Arian Smith and Maui Noah all the way to Membu and whoever else it may be. But today, obviously, really not a lot going on. Nani's going to stay on for about the first hour, and then if the chat fills up, I'll hit questions for like the last 30 to 45 minutes, wherever it's going to be, once people join up. But because there's really nothing going on, we're going to do our top 25 list, which we've been doing. I don't know how long I've been doing it with you. I think since Kyle Smith left, you've replaced Kyle Smith with the top 25 list. But I've been doing this for about a decade now. And I always love doing it. And I make the list about a month before I even record this show. And I continuously go back and change it. So I'm never like solidified in exactly who I think should be in the top 25. I didn't include punter. I don't know if you did. If you included Mac.
No, I didn't.
I could have easily would have been a top 10 player for me, like relative to his position. But with these rankings, I don't know how you did it. I think kind of every year we don't really factor in positional importance into these. Mm-hmm. It's just based on how good you are at your position that you play. That's kind of how I do it, because then obviously Gino would be much higher than he is for me currently. So We'll get right into it. Billy SBC says that Knicks game was special. I don't watch basketball much, dude. Like I don't know. Like they were down 29, and then it was 27 at halftime, and then they slowly started ticking away. And then you heard a little bit of a crowd pop once they got it within 20, and then within 15, then within 10. And I just saw where it was going. And this is why a lot of people say like, hey, these young teams don't win these championships because they make silly mistakes, and they've been making mistakes in these games. So regardless of how you want to say the rest of the game has gone, but yeah, I'm happy for the Knicks fans. I'm not happy for the Knicks, even though I do like Brunson. I cannot lie. It's hard to hate on Brunson. So I guess we can get right into the list here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we'll go through. Obviously, we're going to go 25, 2-1. I have a few honorable mentions after, or Nania has a few honorable mentions after. I have like a list after the list. So we'll address that quickly after. I feel like I should, maybe I'm not going to, maybe I'll write yours down actually next to mine. Okay. So your 25th best ranked player on the Jets currently is?
Yeah. So, and quickly, just on like the logic behind it, like you're talking about, I did kind of factor in positional value. I kind of looked at it in the sense of like, how much does this player help the Jets win? So like, that's why I didn't have, like, I don't think a punter or kicker, even if they're really good, probably would be in this top 25. So I did factor that in a little bit, then factor in, how do you rank compared to your position? So kind of a balance more so than just position. Because I think if I did do it and how good are you relative to your position, then it kind of gets murky to like, is McNamara then top 5? Are the returners top 5? So I kind of try to strike the balance with those two
maybe
things.
I need more of a balance then too. That kind of makes sense, because I did that a little bit without even recognizing it.
Yeah, and then I also looked at it in kind of like a projection way. So it's not really, what have they done or what is like the general expectation, is more kind of my prediction sort of how well they're going to play this year or where they're going to rank at the end of this year. So that's kind of how I stacked it up in terms of the projection side of it. So starting from 25, I have I'm curious about this one. I feel like you're going to have him higher, but 25, I'm going
Andrew Beck.
Harrison Phillips.
Okay. Yeah. I have him a touch higher. The problem I had with like Phillips type, like the Phillips type specifically, or is that, okay, you only do one thing very well. So how highly can you be ranked? He is a little bit higher to me just because of how good the run defense is for him and how consistently he is good at run defense. But I understand, because he pretty much gives you he gives you pretty much absolutely nothing as a rusher. So I understand. I did struggle with Phillips actually quite a bit, but I do have him just not honestly a lot higher than you think I maybe do, but I have him just a touch higher than you do. So hold on, I actually just screwed something up.
This was a tough one in general. I also want to add, because it feels like there's a lot of projection involved. Like we have 4 different rookies who are going to potentially be starting. So you have to kind of guess, we like these prospects, but they're rookies. How good are they going to be this year?
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of free agents coming in. You don't know how they'll fit the scheme. You have older free agents who played well last year, but you're guessing, is this guy going to hit the wall, or is he going to replicate that? And then you have young players that they've had for a few years who you're trying to project. Are they going to take another leap? Are they going to continue to play the same way they played? So I feel like this was one of the more challenging ones since we've started doing this over the past few years.
Yeah, I feel like I just accidentally deleted somebody, and now somebody is missing from my list because my 25th was Brandon Stevens. And this is kind of, but now it's Isaiah Davis. So something's wrong with my list. I'm gonna have to figure out who I accidentally deleted just a few seconds ago. I guess my 25 right now is Isaiah Davis, but really it's Stevens, and somewhere it's lost. So I'm gonna find exactly where I just screwed up. But I'm just gonna say Stevens is my 25th best player. I kind of like tiered it out a little bit. Like I have a below average tier. I have like a young / near average tier, average plus average, and like pro ball and all pro level type players. And I did the same thing as you. This is more like projection of where they will be. And I know Stevens had a rough start, and after the rough start, he bounced back actually decently well. And he's kind of fighting the opinion that he was a bad player because of the first couple of weeks, right? Like the first couple of weeks, he really struggled. And with Jets fans, the first impression is pretty much everything. And it's going to take you a lot to bounce back from that first impression, especially if you're not like a superstar level player. But the stats on Stevens, like he gave up like 7 or 8 touchdowns last season.
8 touchdowns.
And like even little things, like I heard him talking about, it was something about mentoring one of the rookies with like his technique and stuff. But I specifically remember being really pissed off in that Dolphins game when he just let Jalen Waddle run right by him on a drag route when he was isolated on the backside with Waddle. I'm like, why are you not playing with inside leverage? Like I crushed him for that. It's like little like nuanced things you want to see him do a little bit better. So to me, he's the 25th best player on the team right now. I could see a world where he maybe struggles a little bit, and then you see like a Nashawn Wright or somebody like that take over his role. I think he's decent enough, but realistically, like relative to his position, which is a number 1, number 2 corner, wherever you want to put him, he's a below average starter for me because of the touchdowns given up. I do think he could be better, but right now, currently, he's my 25th best player. And again, I freaking deleted somebody, so
I had him as my first honorable mention, so one spot behind you, basically
below. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then my 24th player, which is saying 23, which is annoying me, is Jamie Sherwood, another guy who I do think he'll play. This one was hard for me because I do think he'll play a little bit better than he did last year because of not having to be that green dot player and having Demario Davis next to him and all of that, all of those things. But realistically, he played like a backup level player last year. Like he was not a starter level player last year, and he really, really struggled. So I do think that he'll bounce back to being a starting level player, but like in that below average type of tier. Like would you expect Jamie Sherwood, even with a bounce back, to be a average or above average player? Or do you think a bounce back can just be, hey, him being basically unplayable to being where I have him? And again, I'm not trying to force you into this, but like, do you really see him taking the leap from going all the way from basically unplayable to all the way to basically the price the Jets paid for him, like being an average to plus average starter? Obviously, $15 million a year, they want you to be a top 10 linebacker. But I think if he was somewhere like a below average starter, again, like the 24th best linebacker in the league this year, maybe don't sign up for it. But I think that's like kind of a fair opinion of what to expect from him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a realistic hope. It's, he was hard for me to rank too, because you have this really high ceiling that relative to the rest of this roster would probably put him top 10, even maybe top 5. But, the floor was so low last season. I mean, you sign a contract like that and you get benched as a team captain. That is a very damning thing to happen. So I think realistically, you're hoping he lands in the middle between 24 and where he was last year. But, different scheme in certain ways, different play caller. At least he gets to play next to Demario Davis now. So we'll see if that allows him to, settle in a little bit more. He's a huge wild card, and one of many that makes this a very difficult list to rank. So my 24th, staying on the defense, I have Joseph Osai here.
Oh wow. Your 24th player.
24th.
Really? Is there a I feel like that's relatively low for what I expect him to be, just because I do think like he's a $12 million contract, 3 years, $36 million, right? 2 years guaranteed. I feel like he's kind of paid to be a mid-level starter at the end, maybe a little bit below. I'm not overly high on him either. Like I don't have him super high. But I do have him a decent chunk. Like this might be one where we're actually quite a bit different in terms of where these guys where your guys rank in comparison to mine. So obviously you've looked at them. So what is your reason for that one?
Yeah, I think looking at who I have above, and the next two I don't even know if you have these next two on your list, but
okay.
I feel like I'm kind of slotting him here as like kind of like you said, average starting edge rusher. And some of the players above may have more specialized roles where I see them being better in those roles, and kind of through that maybe making a bigger impact than a guy like Osai, who is still a huge upgrade compared to what the Jets had, but is more like, okay, he's a placeholder starter, and maybe someone who is really, really good at this one thing he'll be asked to focus on will kind of make a greater impact. So I think that's kind of my logic with him being here, as opposed to maybe like 4 or 5 spots higher. But yeah, and maybe there's some projection involved with that, because there will be some young players here who we don't know what they'll do in the first season, but I did kind of lean towards some of the potential and ceilings for some of these guys, as opposed to Osai, who I think you're getting like a high floor, reliable, average player who's just going to be there and, won't stand out in a Michael Clemens sort of way.
Okay. And then can you give me your next one as I try to figure out who exactly I deleted on my list?
Yes. So going to 23rd here, and maybe controversial, but I feel like you get voted the team MVP, you have to be on the list. But I have Isaiah Williams here at 23rd. Wow. I mean, the special teams was the only difference between the Jets being winless and having 3 wins last year. And Isaiah Williams obviously was a part of that, two-way returner, and he contributes in other ways. And he showed a rosterable wide receiver abilities, with the ball in his hands at times. So given that, I think it's enough to put him in the top 25 here. But the hope is that, by the end of the season, someone else steps up enough to where special teamers aren't in your top 25. But I mean, the return game was really, really good last year. So I felt like he had to be in here.
Yeah, I didn't even consider specialist, but I think that's a good one. Nguanu could be up there too. It's just the injuries, and McNamara is, again, relative to his position, he'd be pretty damn high on this list. But it looks like I did screw up a little bit. So I guess Isaiah Davis is my 25. And then which yours was, let me just do this again. Yours was Phillips, and then your Phillips. 24th. Your 24th was Osai. Yep. And then Osai, Isaiah Williams. And then Isaiah Williams. Okay, and I'll go to 22, and this one might be slightly controversial, but I don't. Again, it's just kind of relative to my expectations.
So did you do 23 yet?
Yeah, so my 23 was Sherwood. So mine went Isaiah Davis, who I didn't. I just screwed up my initial list. Stevens is 24, and then 23 is Sherwood. My 22, I feel like this one's going to be controversial in terms of like I think maybe people are overhyping exactly what this player is going to be in the 2026 season. I've said it before, and you might kind of get the hint that I do think he's going to be a little bit more of a slow burn to really develop into his NFL career. And again, we are doing rookies, and this is Sadiq for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I just like. It's a very tough transition to come into the NFL as a tight end, in general, right? You have to learn how to be an offensive lineman on some reps. You have to learn how to be a receiver, and think about all the different ways he's going to be used. Like he's going to be used, power slot. He's going to be used as an X isolated. He's going to be used as an H back, a fullback. He's going to be doing end arounds. Like he has a lot on his plate. And realistically, looking at him at Oregon, he was a very raw player, like in many ways, whether it be catch technique and just dropping a ball, or with blocking in line, which I don't think he can currently do in the NFL. Now, again, if he's on the backside of an outside zone, you just want him to cut off the defensive end and just get in the way, fine. But on the front side, you cannot do that with him. And I think he's going to be buried a little bit in terms of receiving targets. Like I do think Mason Taylor gets more than him. I think Breece Hall gets more than him. I think Omar Cooper does. I think A.D. Mitchell does. I think Garrett Wilson does. So I think he's closer to sixth, seventh in targets instead of like closer to top 3, right? Like I'm putting Garrett above him. I'm putting Brees above him. AD, Cooper, Mason Taylor. So I probably say he's the 6th in terms of targets. I do think he'll be a little bit more of a slow burn. Like I said, I think year 3, 4, if you told me he's a top 5 tight end in the league, I wouldn't think you're crazy. But he was raw in Oregon, right? Like I know he had 8 touchdowns or whatever it was, but he only had like 500 receiving yards, right? So it's not like he was dominating at the collegiate football level either. He was drafted mostly based purely on upside and athleticism. So he's a raw player. I do think it'll take him a little bit to adjust. So I'd expect in a few years, I have him much higher on my list. But yes, currently Sadiq is, I think, the 22nd best player on the Jets.
Yeah, this will be one of our biggest separators, but not because I disagree with anything you said. I just think this kind of, looking at my list, 14 to 21 range is a lot of, I think they're very close because there's a lot of projection-based players in here, like Sadiq, who, everything clicks. He could be amazing, but, realistically speaking, you're expecting that development curve. So I do have him significantly higher, but I think it probably in the same tier if we're talking about like the spectrum of outcomes. What
would you expect for him, like in terms of, and we can do this one too, because I think a lot of people, like you look at like I don't know if you have a stat prediction article already done or you already have it like made up or whatever. I don't know if we want to give that away and we could do a whole show on it, but like I feel like people throw out stats like, 500 yards for him, 600 yards for him, 700 yards for him, and then you add it all up and you're like, shit, Geno needs to throw for 5,000 yards to get all these guys as many yards as people think they'll get when they do individual. Because like even when you're doing these predictions, like you still have to factor in Isaiah Davis, who usually gets like 150 to 200 yards. Braylon Allen's going to get you 100, 150 yards receiving. Isaiah Williams, Arian Smith, Jeremy Ruckert, Jelani Woods. Like all those guys just have 100 to 150 yards. That's 1,000 yards of Geno's yards about. Yeah. Then he has another 2,500 yards to split between Garrett Wilson, who's going to get 1,000 to 1,100 and all these guys. So I'm not saying that's you specifically. Obviously, you think about this crap, but like, what do you predict then for Sadiq's rookie season in terms of statistically? And obviously, I may be putting you on the spot here, but like a general kind of, what are you generally assuming?
Yeah, I haven't done a stat prediction article yet, but you're right, because every time I do that, you kind of get to that point of like, you look at all these players individually, you're like, I could see Cooper getting 500, Mitchell 600, Sadiq 600, but then you base it off of like, okay, Geno will get 3,500, 4,000 yards or whatever. And then you start adding it up and Garrett Wilson's going to get over a quarter of that. And then Brees Hall's going to get like 500. And you see very quickly, like everyone can't eat to the degree that you want them to. So there has to be people in there who suffer, who don't get as much as you think. And Sadiq is definitely a candidate for that. I mean, he's really hard to project. I think it comes down to like how much do they want to force feed him because they made that pick and they believe in it so much. Like, are they going to prioritize him because they want to justify the pick? Or if he does take as much time to develop as you're saying he possibly could, based on what they see in the summer and preseason, will they be willing to put him in a back seat compared to Taylor, compared to Hall and the complementary receivers? So I could see it landing anywhere. He really is the hardest to project probably out of all the the pass game targets because of the investment versus where he may really be as a player. So it's hard to say, but I could see him having that type of season where he has like 300 yards and it's just like, why do we draft this guy? But hopefully next year he breaks out.
I'm going to run you through it, and this is quite literally just because I thought of the yardage thing. This is not touchdowns. This is not catches or anything like that. Like, tell me where I'm crazy, right? And this is with Geno throwing for 3,950 yards. This would be people's stats that I would predict, like a general just receiving yards. So I got Cooper at 450. I have Sadiq at 350. I have Garrett Wilson at 1,100. I have AD Mitchell at 600. Hall at 350, which is low for Hall. Taylor at 400, which I feel is low, but I'm going to have him at 400. I have Tim Patrick at 200, which people might think that's high, but we didn't see anything from what was the receiver's name? Johnson? Was it Tyler Johnson last year? He had like 150 to 200 yards, and we barely saw him. So for our receiver 4, I gave him 200 yards. Isaiah Williams, which is low for him, even last year, like 180 or whatever it was. I gave him 100 yards. I gave Isaiah Davis 100 yards, which realistically is probably closer to 200. I gave Arian Smith 100 yards. I gave Allen 50 yards, which really is probably closer to 100, 150. And I gave Ruckert 100 yards. And that's almost 4,000 yards passing for Geno. So if you thought any of those numbers were too low or high, you have to like factor in Geno's yards too. So I don't know if I'm being like outlandish there with any of their predictions, like, too high, too low on anybody. But generally, like Isaiah Williams 100, Davis 100, Smith 100, Allen 50, Ruckert 100. I would take the over on I would take the over on those added yards. Like I think it's actually be more than that. And then one of the guys up top suffers, but like, whose yards are you taking away from there to give more to Sadiq? Like I have Sadiq with 350. I could see Garrett Wilson with maybe a little bit over 1,000, maybe AD with a little bit less, but I just don't know where he factors in terms of the target share. So I gave him 350 yards this year. Mason Taylor was targeted plenty last year, and he had like a little bit over 400, right? And now there's more mouths to feed. So I just don't know. I don't know. He has 350. So for me. So is there any stats there that are like outlandish? You think like, oh, this guy should be higher or lower by 100 or so yards? Or
yeah, I mean, I think all those are pretty fair. I think the scenario where Sadiq has a really productive rookie year, I think, is if this turns into a model sort of like what you see with the Ravens a couple of years ago when Andrews and Likely were both very productive for them. And, say the receivers after Garrett Wilson kind of become almost non-existent, and we're Taylor and Sadiq, your two tight ends, are basically your 2 and 3, or maybe Breece Hall's up there, he's second or third, and like you're basically taking those non-Garrett Wilson wide receiver targets and funneling all those to your tight ends, and maybe Mitchell doesn't do much, maybe Cooper is only a gadget guy in his rookie year. I think that's the type of scenario where you could see, okay, now we have some targets for both of these guys at tight end, and Sadiq could be really involved. But you're right. Like it's going to be a big storyline to see how this develops throughout camp, like see how he's involved, and then preseason. And then when the season gets here, it could be a storyline to where, why is this 16th overall tight end not getting as many targets as he should? But it depends on how quickly he develops, because obviously they love the ceiling to make that pick.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And I think Sadiq will have more like schemed up plays than Mason Taylor. I just think Mason Taylor is going to be that wide tight end, and he's going to make a third or fourth progression, check it down type deal where he'll just accumulate more catches and a little bit more yards than Sadiq. But I do think Sadiq will be more of a primary option where, okay, you're the seam route, you're the first or second read, or it's an end around. So I do think he'll be more of a focus, but I think Mason Taylor will play more reps than Sadiq. He'll get a little bit more yards. He'll be that check down type player. But yeah, so I have Sadiq at 22nd best player. And again, it's more predictive of where they'll be this season. Did you give me your 20? You didn't give me your 22nd yet.
Not yet. Quickly to wrap that one up. Like I think we could see like a Kyle Pitts type of usage, like not his rookie year, not this past season, but like when people were complaining in the middle of his career he doesn't do enough, like a type of tight end who, they're similar in the sense that they're athletic, lankier tight ends, super athletes, more like big receivers. And he doesn't get a ton of targets. He doesn't score a ton of touchdowns, but high yards per reception, because like you said, you're getting like those vertical routes, those featured targets in the concept, as opposed to, like Tyler Conklin had a ton of receptions, a lot of check downs, and like Mason Taylor could get those for the Jets. Sadiq's not really going to be your check down guy as much. So I could see him having that type of season. He gets like 50 targets, catches 30 of them, but maybe they're like 15 yards of reception and you get 400, 450, something like that. But my 22nd, I got Kene Nwangwu here. I mean, he is one of the greatest kick returners ever. If you look at his average and the rate at which he scored touchdowns, he's at like a Gale Sayers type of level. That's like the only competition that he has. So he's my guy here, because like I said, the special teams last year kind of carried them, and these two guys were instrumental in that. So there aren't enough proven players on this team for me to not put two elite returners at least at the bottom here. So
how do you factor in injuries with him though? Because that's been his biggest problem, right? Has been injuries, which is like,
I didn't think about injuries really with this list, and maybe I should have thought about it more, but I didn't factor it in. I just thought about the talent.
It's interesting, like, again, and these are the thoughts you have on June 12th, when there's really nothing going on. But like, I'm like thinking about the 53rd player on the roster, and it's like, I think Nagwanu is going to make it. But carrying 4 running backs, like that might push down a tight end or a fullback. And then I kind of came to the conclusion that, and this is, it's not going to be this cut and dry probably, but I think like that 53rd spot's going to come down between a guy like Andrew Beck and Jelani Woods. And that's one of my questions with Sadiq. Can the combination of Sadiq / Ruckert take like that fullback H-back type role away from Beck? Because right now, gun to my head, and I didn't watch Beck's season back, but right now blocking in space out of all the Jets blockers, I'm taking Beck right now over everybody. So, but it'll be interesting to see because Frank Reich has that familiarity with Jelani Woods. So, but yeah, I factored in Nagwanu. It's like, yeah, they're going to carry 4 running backs, and then they're going to carry, at least in my opinion, probably 6 receivers. So you get into like a roster pinch with keeping some of these guys. But yeah, Nagwanu was great, man. I was at that Browns game where was it him and Isaiah Williams both got returns in that game, and we only won by like 3 or 4 points, whatever it was. So it took those 2 plays, but great player. I don't have him as high because of the injuries, and honestly, I didn't really factor in so much of the special teams guys, transparently. So I'll go to my 22nd player, which you already have shared. I'm just trying to pull up his stuff. My 21st player is Harrison Phillips. Again, I think he's very good at his job and what he does, and I love the leadership and some of the quotes we've been seeing from him in recent months. It's just he's super one-dimensional, right? Like there's nothing else he could do other than run stopping, which is important. But realistically, if you're talking about would you rather a run stopper or a pass rusher at D tackle, the pass rushing is the more impactful thing, even though. Yeah. In terms of football wise, realistically, and I agree with what Demario Davis says in terms of like you have to control the trenches and stop the run game before you can pass rush. And Sabo has said that too, like earn the right to rush the passer. And that's been thrown around in football circles forever. And it's true. But in terms of like ranking a guy, I would put a guy who's a better pass rusher above a guy who's a better run defender. But he's a guy who is very effective in the run game. I don't know if you have any stats or anything like that on him, but very good in that aspect. But again, like how many pressures did he have last year? Probably close to none. I
think he had one quarterback hit the whole season. So like that's why I had him so low because he had 1 quarterback hit and that was part of a half sack. So outside of that, he did not knock the quarterback down. So like that matters even if you're really good against the run because you're going to be out there for pass plays. You can't hide a guy from pass situations. No. So like if it's going to be a pass play and you're kind of just standing there, it's a big issue.
Yeah, maybe I should have even had him lower. Like I think Phillips is one of the guys I moved around the most from like high to low, just because I love the leadership and stuff. But again, he's very one dimensional. So he's 21 for me. He was 25 for you. It's not the biggest difference in the world. I think the biggest difference we're gonna have is probably Osai and Sadiq that I'm seeing so far. 21st player, who are we looking at?
21st here, I have A.D. Mitchell.
Wow.
Interesting one. Like I think he's a guy who I could see not being on this list because, the production he's had would justify that. But I think there's enough potential to slide him in here. And if you really believe in that potential, you could put him a lot higher because I think the ceiling is really good. But I think this is like a middle ground between where, everything clicks and every single one of those separated deep balls is a touchdown for him. And okay, there are still drop issues, contested catch issues, and just not any proven production yet. So I got him 21st here.
Okay, yeah. I didn't reveal him yet, but I just went back and did his review, and man, just some of the times he was missed last season were brutal for him. And obviously, he had the drop versus the Pats, but I remember on that 3rd and 3 near the red zone, he cooked that one corner on a slant. There was another game, I think it was a Panthers game, maybe he cooked someone on a slant, but Tyrod looked away from him. There was multiple times where he beat guys deep and the ball just wasn't thrown to him or was just completely thrown off target. Dolphins game, he had like 2 touchdown opportunities where the ball was underthrown or was not put in the right spot. So what were the stats? So like, I think with him, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Nani, if you know these stats off the top of your head, but I think he had 3 drops his first week against the Pats. And then the remaining 8 or 9 weeks, he only had 3 drops in those games. So I think people look at him people look at him and say, oh my God, he sucks. He drops the ball all the time. When realistically, in 9 weeks, the rest of the season, he only had 3 drops. And I think his rookie season, he had like 3 or 4 drops in the entirety of it. So I think he does have a drop issue, but I don't think it's a glaring weakness like it is for like Arian Smith, where he's going to drop a ton of balls, where like, he might be in that 5 to 7 range, which is maybe even a touch high. I think that's probably honestly average, about average level in terms of hands. So while he might not have the best hands, I don't think his hands are as bad as some people have kind of indicated, just because again, he left that bad first impression with that Pats game, where realistically I watched him like, yeah, not the best game in the world in terms of catching the ball, but my God, did he roast Christian Gonzalez a few times in that game. So I do have him higher than you do, obviously, considering he's your 21st, and I've already revealed my 21st. But yeah, I think that was a stat. 3 drops for week 1. In the next 8 or 9 weeks he played with the Jets, it was only 3 drops. So I would say his hands are a little bit better than maybe people think they are. And he impressed me as a route runner. He did, like, getting open on slants. Like he's obviously more of a deep threat for the Jets, but he roasted guys on slants multiple times this year. So he's a guy who's not just one dimensional, not going to give you the best yak, not the best contested catch guy, but pretty good releases, and he will roast you deep. So I'm looking forward to AD Mitchell with a guy like Geno Smith, who is very willing to put the ball up in the air. The question is Frank Reich offense, right? It's like he doesn't throw the ball deep a lot. Omar Cooper Jr., in terms of route running, his best aspect of route running is vertical. AD Mitchell, best aspect of route running is vertical. So I'm hoping that Reich opens it up a little bit. And secondarily with Reich, I know you did the article, and like he doesn't like to do a lot of motion and stuff, right? Yeah. Omar Cooper, Sadiq, all these guys, you got to put them in motion, right? Like you got to take advantage of their yak potential and stuff, and just having them stagnant isn't going to be great for this offense. So I'm hoping that Reich adjusts a little bit.
Yeah. And on AD too, like, it's so interesting because he already dealt with this same narrative his rookie year, catching passes from Anthony Richardson. I mean, you posted how many clips of him roasting Stingley on plays that could have been touchdowns in addition to other players. And so you're looking at this 2-year sample now of him having this long reel of separated plays that should have been touchdowns if he was targeted at all, or if the throw was better. And then with the drops, you also have to consider, a lot of those are passes that could have been caught, but when you're catching passes from Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields, you're going to get more errant throws that are drop opportunities, whereas maybe an accurate quarterback would have thrown a perfect ball that wouldn't have had the potential to be dropped. So like that can push your drops up a little bit higher than it should be. But he's so interesting because if you make half of those plays 50-yard touchdowns that we've seen on film,
like this one right here, Nania. Yeah. If I don't know if you're watching the screen, but like on the bottom of the screen, like there's a lot of examples like
with
this.
Tyrod too, he was missing them as well.
Yeah, like from his seat. Yeah, like the Baltimore game, like that first throw, he threw it so late. But even this is the play I was talking about. I said Panthers game, but it was the Baltimore game. This is 4th and 3 to the top of the screen here. Or no, I don't know where it just went, but. Right here to the top of the screen, 4th and 3, roast this guy, but the ball doesn't go to him. So I think with better quarterback play, he could be much better. Like obviously, I go back and I watch not just the targets, but every single route they ran, and I watched him like, damn, he's a good player, man. If he could just catch the ball with more consistency. So I have high hopes for AD Mitchell. I think he's being overlooked a little bit by fans, and maybe even you a little bit with where you put him on your list, even though I don't have him.
I'm starting to feel like shaky about it because I was just gonna say, like, if half of these plays are catches, like how differently do you look at this guy? It's just exactly. I feel like I think back to Elijah Moore, and like there was a lot of like similar narratives where it's like, look how open he is, and then he never really capitalized on it. So I guess sometimes there is something to like, okay, if a player is not producing, he just doesn't have it, even if there are clips there where he's open. But it really does feel like there is something here with AD. So I kind of hedged it a little bit, put him in the middle between the ceiling and the floor. But I am really excited to see, as long as Geno plays as competently as I think he could, what AD could do here. So my 20th is, now we're dipping into the rookie class. I have D'Angelo Pons here at number 20. Another difficult projection. It's like, what is this guy going to do as a rookie compared to what his ceiling is? But for me, I think there will be an adjustment because obviously he was used to being dominant in college with a really small frame. And I think you come to the NFL and you'll find out pretty quickly that it's going to be a lot difficult to win in the same ways. with that frame against NFL competition. So, and I think corners in general don't, obviously Sauce being an exception, but I think they tend to have longer adjustment curves and struggle as rookies. So I think that lowers his floor a little bit for the first year, but he's also just so tenacious and such a good tackler that I think he'll make an impact in that way. He'll have great bumping plays at the line of scrimmage and get some deflection. So like, I still think there'll be an impact there, but definitely some overall growing pains, and that puts him down here at 20.
Now, would you categorize him again, and however you quantify this, because you haven't watched every corner in the league or anything like that, but I guess you kind of determine like he's going to be a starter, but a below average starter in his rookie year.
Yeah, that's kind of how I put it, like below average starting slot corner.
Yeah. Now where? Okay, so I was just gonna ask that question. So you expect him to be the slot for the Jets?
I think so, because it's the quickest path to get him in there. Because I do think Stevens is going to stay in the starting lineup. I think AZ is going to, and no spoiler, but I think he's going to win it and play well, or one of those boundary spots. And then I think the slot is just kind of your most seamless way to get Pons involved.
Yeah, I think that's where he makes his biggest impact, right? Like, I think that's where he helps the most. I think Stevens and AZ Thomas are better outside corners than Brownlee is a slot. Brownlee's just very volatile, and just like, listen, there's going to be situation. One, I want to get him more involved in the run game, and you do that by putting him in the slot. But I think that's his home in the NFL. Now, it does seem like he might be cross trained to play. Like, I would have him. And again, mostly you're going to be in nickel and dime in the NFL, so he's going to be mostly in the slot. But if there's a set where it's a base 3-4 and they're going heavy, then I'll put him in the game over Stevens outside. That might take time because you're a rookie and you're learning multiple positions. So he might pick a slot year 1 and 2 and then develop the outside game a little bit. But I want him in slot because I think that's where his best fit is. And I think people when they think of size with him, it's like, oh, like he's just going to get out jumped all the time for jump balls. Like, that's not going to happen a ton. It will happen, but the more so the size that concerns me is like getting pushed off on the top of like a dig or a slant and having to work with that physicality. And it's the same thing I was going to say with Sadiq. And I don't know if you watched the review or whatever, but like I said, it's like, if that was true, where people say, oh, well, he's just bigger than a corner or a safety who's going to get open on them, but he's faster than a linebacker, then why did Pons dominate him when he played against Pons? He's so much bigger than him and all that stuff. Like, why did he not dominate it? So it's more than just size or speed or anything like that in the NFL. It's much more technique and stuff. But okay, so Pons is your 20th. This is where I have Geno Smith. And I'm still in the below average range of players for me. So I do think that Isaiah Davis is a below average player, specifically a starter. Obviously, Stevens is, Sherwood is, Sadiq will be, Phillips is, because of the lack of pass rush. And then this is where my below average like tier kind of ends, and I go towards more closer to average or like unproven type players. But this is where Geno is. I think, he'll be the 23rd best quarterback in the league, something like that. Like, maybe sniffing the bottom 10, maybe a little bit better than the bottom 10. But I expect him to be, probably like mid to high 3,000 yards. I do think they'll run the ball quite a bit. 24 touchdowns, 15 picks, something like that. I do think he's a better player than he showed with the Raiders last year. The Raiders situation was awful with Chip. I went through it, and I did 120 something plays of Geno. Yeah. So I went through it plenty. The offense was bad. The receivers were bad. There was drops. The offensive line was horrific, but Geno also made plenty of terrible plays as well himself. Right. So this is where I have Geno as the 20th player. I'm going to pull up example that, and this is a highlight film of him basically, where it's just showing some of the missed opportunities or shitty situations he was put in. But realistically, and I showed it in his review, like there is just some mental errors or there's some like coverage rotation type stuff that he just does not pick up on. I don't think he's not the most like, I don't want to call it smart because then people are going to come at me, but just for lack of a better term, like the smartest quarterback in the world in terms of like learning rep by rep, reading coverage rotations, seeing pre-snap alignments, like stuff like that. I don't think Geno's the best at. So yeah, I guess like the 22nd best quarterback, 23rd best quarterback in the NFL this year. And he falls at 20 for me.
Yeah, that's fair. I do have him a few spots higher, but it won't be too long. So my number 19, whose review you just put out, or
you put out,
I put out, you made, I posted, is David Onyemata.
Okay.
He was also interesting because compared to a lot of these other guys, there's a good amount of projection. I feel like you know what you're getting with him. Veteran defensive tackle, good run stopper, decent amount of pass rush. Like, we're not talking about a Harrison Phillips to where he won't give you anything. There's some there. So a little more balanced. So yeah, he's kind of a little more stable. This is where you're like, I think where I'm kind of getting into, average, I don't think quite average starter yet, maybe still below that, but like, okay, this guy's like competent starter. So I have him here
at 20. Okay, yeah, I'll just give it
19,
up then. He's
19 for Onyema.
Okay, he is also he's your 19th. Sorry, he's my 18th player.
Gotcha.
I do think he's about an average level player. So I'll give up my 19th now. Obviously, it's Omar Cooper Jr. is my 19th player. I think he'll be, again, like I think there's 3 starters at receivers in today's NFL, right? Like, it's 11 personnel dominated, so there's 3 receivers who are a starter. I think he'll be the Jets receiver 3 in terms of just like productivity and reliability. And I think he's about an average level number 3 in his rookie year. He has to develop a little bit as a route runner. The contested catching in 2025, I'm not so sure it translates to the NFL level in terms of like how consistently he did it. Now, I didn't watch 2024, so maybe he had better contested catching in that season, but I did feel like when I watched a lot of his contested catching, it was body catching where he got a little bit lucky with how it unfolded, instead of like attacking the ball, high pointing the ball, like plays that are replicatable at the NFL level, where you could body catch a little bit at the NFL, but it's not going to work as well as it did against whoever, Southern Miss, whatever school he's playing. So I do like Cooper. I do think he's a little bit raw. As a route runner, I do think he's very good with yak. I think he has pretty good releases, but I think he needs to work on his short and intermediate route running, and then specifically like attacking the ball with his hands and stuff. He can be a little bit of a body catcher. So I think just, again, kind of like relative to their position type stuff, I think he's a near average starting level receiver, and obviously I expect him to be better in future years. But for his rookie year, again, I'm predicting 450-ish yards, maybe like 400 to 500 yards. I don't know, 3-4 touchdowns for him. So I can't say he's like a great starter or anything like that right now. He's about sniffing average as a starter for me. So he's my 19th, and Onyemata was my 18th. I think Onyemata as a D tackle, D end this year will be a better player than Cooper is as a receiver. And I'm not valuing him over Omar Cooper. If I'd have one of my own team this year, it's still Cooper because he plays the more important position. But relative to their positions, I do think Onyemata may be a better defensive lineman than Cooper is a receiver. So he's one spot higher. But Cooper's my 19 and Onyemata's my 18th.
Nice. Well, we're pretty similar here because to stay on the Cooper subject, I have him 17th, so I'll give my 18th as well.
Okay.
But yeah, with Cooper, what I like in terms of ranking him here is that I feel like the things he's good at can be transferred as a rookie. So while he develops his all-around game and hopefully trends towards becoming that wide receiver 2 for the long term that you want him to be, I think he does things well that you can use as a rookie. He's tough with the ball in his hands, great contact balance, great yak game overall, and then he has vertical speed that you could use to stretch the field. So I feel like we talked about Reich, like, is he going to put these guys in motion? Is he going to attack deep? Those are adjustments that hopefully he makes. But assuming Reich does do those things, because, they did draft these players in the first round with Reich as an OC. Assuming he does that, I think Cooper does have skills where, okay, if we put him in the right role, he can make an impact while he works on the things he needs to work on to become like a scheme independent plus starter. So that's why I have him here at 17th, and then 18th. Okay. I believe this is 6 spots higher than your ranking. I have Jamie Sherwood here, and it's not because I'm that much higher on him than I think the way you described it. Like I said, I think this whole tier here is kind of a lot of high ceiling, low floor, and just me kind of trying to hit it in the middle there. But I think I can see Sherwood being an average starting linebacker this year, which, compared to some of the other players below this, I think that's a little bit higher. So he's my 18, and I have Omar Cooper at 17.
Yeah, he could. I think Sherwood, like, you'd take that as a W for what happened last year, but realistically, after this year, you still probably get rid of him, even if he is average. Like, he's getting paid too high to be average, and like, I forget exactly the quote, but it's kind of like he was like looking for a guy last year to lean on. It's like, listen, like I'm not trying to be, I don't like old man yell at cloud or like too brutal here, but you're in your 6th year. Like you gotta either take it or not, So if you need to be like that second linebacker, you should be paying $15 million. Right. So I think this is his last year probably in the Jets unless he restructures or something like that, or obviously a situation can happen where DeMario goes down or he's not as good, and then you don't want to leave a completely, black hole at middle linebacker. So we'll see. But yeah, I understand. Sure, we're there. My next one is, and again, this is where I think you're near an average starter type of players, kind of unproven. This is where I have David Bailey, 17th. Okay. Yeah, 17th overall player. Again, like, in terms of him being near average or average, can I say he's going to be a better than average player in his rookie year? I personally can't, because I think he gets 6 to 8 sacks in this season, which is okay, a slightly higher than average type number for a defensive end, but I don't think he'll give you much in the run game. So even though he may be a plus pass rusher, his run defense will really suffer, and that makes him an average at best starter for me. And I think there's some weaknesses in the pass rush game that he has to work on. Again, like there's gonna be guys at the NFL level who can match his foot speed, and when I saw people match his foot speed at the collegiate level and he couldn't just throw his hands immediately or his move immediately, he tended to struggle a little bit more with his pass rush plan against guys who are faster. So yeah, I think he'll be near average, but I can't say he'll be even plus average or even at the average level. I think he'll be probably, let's just call him average. I'll be a little bit more gracious to him and say he's an average starter in his rookie year. So yeah, he's my 17th best player for the Jets.
So 16 for me, a little bit higher than you. I have Geno Smith in this spot, and I think I was kind of hard on it when they first signed him, or like when it was an idea that it might happen. And in the months since then, I've kind of gotten higher on it, because I think like you said, there are aspects of last season that you could chalk up to the Raiders. There were some unlucky interceptions, and like the ceiling is, for a Jets quarterback standards, pretty high if you're talking about what he did in Seattle for those 3 years. So I don't think he'll quite get back to the best that he did with the Seahawks, but I think, you said 22nd, 23rd. I could see him being like 20th, 19th, 18th. And I think he's a good match with Reich, just based on some of the things that I've seen with, what does Reich typically call and what has Geno been the best at. So I think he's going to push towards that league average starter mark.
Okay.
So
that'd be huge. If we have a league average starter from Geno, we're at 7-8 wins probably with that season, right? Like,
yeah, I think so.
We'd have to be, considering all the talent they have, and if their defense is anything well below average, it's a failure, because I think they do have some talent on this defense. So okay, yeah. So he's your 16th. Yeah, that's that. I think it's a fine ranking. My 16th this is where it kind of ends, like the unproven near average type players, and this is where I have AD Mitchell. So slightly higher than you. I do think, like, I bounced around on him where he was as high as 12 for me, and now he's down at 16. Like I kind of landed in the middle, but I do think if he was just found a few more times last year, Baltimore Ravens game, the first throw where Tyrod takes an extra hitch on a deep out, and he doesn't get the ball completed, or Miami Dolphins with the balls on target, he could have had 2 more touchdowns. Same thing with the Patriots game, and instead of looking at 400 yards and whatever the touchdowns were, you're looking at 600 yards and 2 or 3 more touchdowns, and people are like, oh shit. And I kind of have a similar opinion, and go to the review for this. Trust me, I'm not glazing this player at all, but Arian Smith was actually open a few times deep this year where he was not targeted. So I'm not saying anything great about him, but like, he's not a cut candidate for me yet. I'm definitely holding on to him this year and see if he can develop farther. But yeah, this is where AD Mitchell is. Again, I predicted him to get, just because of the amount of targets that have to go around, about 600 yards this year for the Jets. And then for 15th for me, this is moving into like, okay, this is where I think we have average starters, whether it be unproven or not. I think in the 2026 season, these guys will be average. I have Dylan Parham here at 15. I think he's an upgrade from John Simpson. I don't think his highs will be as high as John Simpson in terms of like pancaking somebody or whatever it may be. Yeah. But I do think there's less mental errors there. There's less penalties there. And he's just a more consistent player down by down. So he's my 15th player.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I have him a little bit higher.
Okay.
Not quite here, but at 15, I also agree. I think this is where we're getting into like plus average to plus starter range. I think the next few I'd put in like average. And then once we get past that, then plus. So I have AZ Thomas here. I think he's going to, like I said earlier, I think he'll win that one of those starting corner spots on the outside. And I don't think this is the end of his ascension, because I think he's a really young player coming into the league. He was 20, I believe 20 when they drafted. Yeah, he was 20 when they drafted him. He's still 21 now. So this is a really young player, and I think he'll continue to have steps in his development. But for this year, I can see him starting, being about average. I think there will be some lows, but some really high highs, which we already saw in his first season, especially in that Bengals game really encapsulated that. He did give up the deep touchdown, but he also had some great plays in that game. And I think we'll get a full season of kind of that. And then I think we'll get more consistency in the coming years. So I have him at 15.
Yeah, that was legitimately a very good game for him. Again, I know he got beat on that one play for a touchdown, which is what it is. But for a rookie going against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and some of the big downs he handled them on, I was extremely impressed by AZ Thomas and in limited reps. And there's some hiccups and there's some things he needs to clean up. But I'm with you. I do think he will be an average level starter. However, I think he's mostly play like left corner because Stevens mostly plays right corner. But I do think he will be the better player of those two. And I think he will average out to be like an average level starting corner this year. He's a little bit unproven, but I have a lot of faith in him just based on what he put on tape last year, which was very good. You said, I hope he stays healthy. So with that being said, he's my 14th. So I have him one spot higher than you do. Again, this is the average level starter territory. Again, I know unproven, but I have some faith in him as a player.
Yeah. So you also had him 15th?
No, so Parham was my 15th, and then AZ Thomas was my 14th.
14, gotcha. Okay, so my 14, much higher than you, is Kenyon Sadiq. And again, like I said earlier, I agree with, and we talked a lot about what his production might be like, where the targets are going to be. I think that's all valid. But for me, I do think I lean towards the fact that they drafted him high is going to prompt them to prioritize him and make sure he gets his looks. And I think he's going to get a lot of the high value looks, like kind of like we said, Mason Taylor might catch more passes, get more targets. And there are a lot of guys, even a couple running backs, who might push him there. But I think when it comes to like stretching the field, going up the seam, or third downs between the 20s, I don't think he'll score a lot of touchdowns. I think Taylor is going to be prioritized there, and just the run game and Garrett Wilson. So I don't think he'll be a touchdown guy, but I think we'll see a lot of big plays between the 20s, and that's going to make him a value player and like a matchup weapon. So I think through that, he can be an average type of tight end this year. And there will be blocking limitations, but I think with the blocking limitations, they will for now try to minimize it in terms of how he's used. So I don't think he'll hurt them as much with the blocking, because they'll try to, make sure he's aligned in the slot, make sure he goes in motion, or his H-back, or whatever they could do to make sure it's not something he has to do a lot, which he needs to be able to do it to get his value up, because once he can block, then there's more ways he could be deployed. He could be a, inline tight end. He could draw linebackers, and it'll be more dangerous that way. So in time, you do want him to develop that and become good at it, because it's just more ways he could make an impact and add value in the way that you'd like a top 16 tight end to. But I think for this season, just in the role that he's going to play, especially because they have Ruckert too, they extended, he can take up a lot of those responsibilities. I think he'll be used in a specialized way that emphasizes what he does well. And he's going to make a good number of big plays where you're like, okay, he made a solid impact for what he's being asked to do. Even if it's not quite his ceiling yet or where he needs to be, I think he could make a decent impact this year. So that's why I have him up here at 14, even with the development curve questions.
Yeah. If he's an average starter for how raw he is coming out of college, I think that's a huge win, especially considering the inline stuff's not there. So he'll have to make up a lot of like the blocking prowess. For like the inline stuff, he's gonna have to combat that with like, okay, I'm really good outside of the box. I'm good in space and leading guys on screens. And end arounds or whatever else it may be. So he's a good blocker in that sense, but I do think he's very raw as a route runner, and I do think he's very raw blocking in line. So if you're to tell me, hey, he finishes as an average level tight end this season, that's a huge win for the Jets. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition. I'm a little bit lower. I do think he'll be a below average starter this season. Especially considering the fact that, again, like this is not the Jets of 2021 where they don't really have a lot of mouth to feed. Like they have quite a bit of mouth to feed. So I just think he may be a little bit more thrown on the back burner. But no, I understand it completely. My 13th is I have quite a bit higher than you do. And I'm not even that high in this player. This is a guy who bounced around quite a bit for me as well, but it's Joseph Osai. Okay. I think he's an average level DN, and that's kind of where I'm at right now, right? Like AZ, a little bit unproven, but average. Parm, a little bit unproven, but average. Osai, I think is about average, right? Like to me, he is a plus run defender. I think he's a decent pass rusher, just decent, but a good run defender. He's had 5 sacks each of the last 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I think he's up closer to like in the high 40s of pressures. I think last year he was at like 52, 53. He was the best Bengals defender minus Hendrickson, and Hendrickson went out. It was really a lot of the onus was put on Osai for the pass rush. So I think with some more weapons around him, a better defense than the Bengals. Listen, I'm not so high on the Jets, but I can comfortably say I think there's a better Jets defense in 2026 than the 2025 Bengals were. So I do think that he'll be afforded better opportunities. But with that being said, does he have as much opportunity to rush the passer, right? Because let's say it's 3rd and 10. If you're talking about your 2 outside linebackers, it better be Bailey and McDonald, because if it's not, we got huge issues. Now, the benefit of having Osai and even Enagbari, but specifically Osai more than Enagbari because he's a better rusher than Enagbari, which maybe he's the one I forgot on my list. That's the one I think I forgot. So Enagbari was probably in the 20s, and that's what I accidentally deleted, actually, because I think I've put him like below average starter, probably right by Onyemata. That's where he is. So factor that in there, not Isaiah Davis. But he's a decent pass rusher and a good run defender. And I think he'll continue to produce with the Jets. I'm a little bit worried that he doesn't get those opportunities to rush the passer, but if you watch him on film, he rushes from 4-eye and 3-tech at times too. And I'm taking him as a 4-eye rusher or even a 5-tech rusher over Onyemata, over Briggs, over some of these other guys. So interesting player, versatile. So he's my 13th.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's just, to me, comes down to like all these other players here who could be really good or they could struggle. Like, where are they going to land versus Osai? I think he's one of those, what you're getting type of players. So that's kind of why I had him lower. But 13th here, another player who I have a little bit higher than you, has a high ceiling. We don't know what we'll get from him this year. I have David Bailey here, and I think it's just, so obviously this to me is a little bit plus average territory. So to me, I think it just comes down to value of pass rush over run defense. And, there could be run struggles and even pass rush. Like, he's not going to be the best that he's going to be in his career this year. This is probably the worst he's going to be until very late in his career. So I don't think he'll be an elite pass rusher either, but I think he'll do really well in 3rd down situations. Not that is the only time he'll play, but when he does get those chances, I think he's going to do really well in those scenarios. And I think he'll get a 8 or 9 sack season. Even if like the overall consistency isn't quite there yet, I think the big plays will be, and that will be enough for him to, set a nice groundwork for him to build off of going into the future seasons and make him a solid contributor for his rookie year. And I think he'll be a good punch out guy. I think the number of fumbles you get from him relative to his sacks is going to be good throughout his career. So for that reason, I could see him getting a couple big forced fumbles that really push up his value. And that's why I have him here. But obviously in the future, hopefully this is a top 3 guy consistently.
Yeah, he's the number 2 overall pick. Realistically, he should be top 5 in a couple of years just based on the expectation. Again, to me, it's just, I'm not so sure the pass rush translates as well as some other people do at the NFL level. And then the run defense is just not there for me. So I do think he'll be a below average starter, but I do understand you saying, okay, but the pass rush impact, that's what these guys are paid and drafted. And you heard Dunbar say the other day, right? Like quite literally, I think he said, like, who gives a shit about the run defense? He rushes the passer basically. It's like, okay,
he kind of
answers the question.
Weird. He said that, but then he was kind of like, well, but then you have to stop the run to get pass rush reps. I don't know. It's kind of weird answer, but
and like people have been weird about that. We're like, oh, why you keep talking about Reese or whatever, or like not hyping up Bailey. It's like I had my opinion out there for 3 or 4 months. Like one of the first ones. Like
so the quote was like, the first thing he said was, "Don't care. Can he rush the passer? That's what we're looking for." But then he said, "Have you been seeing what we're doing? We're teaching him how to do what? Play the run, because you've got to earn the right to rush the passer. If you don't stop the run, they're not going to throw the ball." Yeah. So kind of played it both ways. But here's an interesting question to throw in while we're talking about Bailey. Where would Arvell Reese slide into this list for you?
Okay, so Bailey was my 17th. And again, I got Enag Bari at like 18th. If it was Reese, I would probably, instead of 17, I would probably put him at like, I'll probably put him at like 13. I'll probably put him where you are right now. So from 17 to 13. But I understand, like, hey, if you want the more proven pass rusher, you think he's a better fit for you as a pass rusher in your system. Reese is not as developed, all that stuff. I understand. I guess I understand it. You know where I stand, though. I'd have taken Reese 100 times out of 100 times. His ceiling to me is astronomically higher because I think he could be an elite run defender, and I think he could be a very good pass rusher. In terms of just Bailey's a more pro-ready pass rusher. He has more moves. He has even more speed and burst. But I think if you told me that Bailey hits his, again, this is absolute ceiling talk. Bailey hits his absolute ceiling as a pass rusher. Reese hits his absolute ceiling as a pass rusher. Reese has more traits to be a better pass rusher in terms of power, in terms of the speed, in terms of the explosion, in terms of the strength, where Bailey doesn't have the same like strength traits that a Reese does. But he'd probably be 4 spots higher. So that's about where it is. And then my 12th this is a guy who I think is going to be an average level starter. Again, we're going to get to plus starter right after this, but this is where I have Pons. I think Pons will be the best rookie. Okay. I think relative to his position, he'll be a better DN than Bailey is. I think he'll be a better corner than Omar Cooper is, a receiver. I really like his game. Now, maybe I should bump him down a little bit because he's playing slot. We played outside with Oklahoma, so there's a little bit of a learning curve, but I just think he's a dog. And he's a really good player, really smart player, gets his hands on the football, will be super involved in the run game. So I have him as my 12th, which feels high, but I have a lot of faith in Pons. I like Pons quite a bit.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. It would be big if that happens. I think for the pass defense, how good it's going to be is going to depend on really these two rookies between Bailey and Pons, but then add in Thomas, add in McDonald, some of these wild card players. How are they going to perform? Because I think the Jets have a lot of great run defenders and tacklers now between, Phillips, Sweat, a guy we haven't gotten to yet, Onyemata, Demario Davis, and, Minka. You throw Pons in the slot. Like, there's a lot of good tackling.
Bari, and even the outside guys. Like say what you want about Stevens, but Stevens can tackle.
Yeah, he'll come in and tackle.
Deshaun Wright's willing. The problem is, I don't know if people watch a review, the problem is he does not contain the outside and he just bites to the inside and lets big runs around the outside all the time. So he's willing, but he's super sketchy as a run defender, but he's willing at least.
Yeah, but like generally speaking, it seems like they have a lot of tackling talent. They have a lot of run defense talent, sturdy players. I think they have a really good floor there now. It's just, are we going to get sacks? Are we going to get enough pressure to force interceptions? And the guys they're relying on in those areas are a lot of, you have a couple rookies and you've a couple young players. So it's just, are these guys going to develop and hit their ceilings this year? So hopefully Pons can do that. If he has a really good rookie season, it would be a major difference maker for the ceiling of the whole defense. But 12 for me, I have Dylan Parham here. I think this is an above average starting left guard. Like you said, in both positive and negative ways, probably not as flashy as John Simpson. I don't think you'll see him. Simpson had some amazing plays. Like his highlights were really good, but then there were also really bad penalties. And then especially this past season compared to the previous one, a lot more kind of low point plays. I think Parham is really steady. And I like that he comes from the Raiders in like a messy situation. Cause I think if you stand out as solid, in a situation like that, then your game should only elevate in a better situation. So I have him 12th here.
Okay, so yeah, 3 spots higher than me. I think he's an average level starter again, maybe even plus. He's very reliable to me. And there's a few mental lapses and stuff with the Raiders, but was that the protection? Was that Geno? Was that the O-line coach? Like, there's a lot that goes into it. So he's just much more consistent than Simpson for me. So I think he'll be better than Simpson, at least last year. So yeah, this is where I start to move like. This next one for me, this is my 11th player. This is where I move into plus average, but
I think we have the same 11 players.
We probably do, yeah. Because I don't think you've mentioned any one of these guys. Yeah, we probably the same top 11. Yeah. This is where I move into plus average. I think just based on the way I'm phrasing this, you might know if you kind of have been following my opinion of this offseason. I feel like gun to my head, this player is probably closer to average, but I'm hoping maybe a little bit more for plus average from him. This is Fashanu. I have him at 11. Listen, like I don't really need to speak about it so much, but just go back and watch the review if you haven't. He did not take the step I expected him to take in his sophomore season. I think he may have actually gotten worse in some aspects of his pass protection from his rookie season to his sophomore season. He was very highly touted as a pass protector coming out of Penn State, but I thought, and if you actually go back on JetX's channel and look at the Fashanu review prior to him being drafted for the Jets, prior, not after, because I did 2 reviews. I quite literally in the review said, is he overrated? And I thought he was a little bit overrated. And this past season, obviously not the best run blocker, right? We know that he's below average run blocker, but for pass protection, man. And I know it was specifically early on in the season, but he overset a lot. His pad level was very up and down. It was not even like it should be, like Membu's was. And he throws the same punch. And I've said this for 3 years now. Every single time his hands are wide. It's either, and sometimes he changes the cadence of left to right, but it's right over the top, left underneath, or left over the top, or right underneath, depending where they are. And he gets bull rushed all the time, and guys start to kind of time his rounded punch and beat him to the inside a lot. He got beat badly in that Steelers game quite a bit. He got beat in the Bucs game, the Cowboys game. They started to time it a lot. Just transparency. I think that Fashanu was at the very best an average left tackle last year. And if I had to be 1,000% honest, gun to my head, he's probably below average, I think. And so I think the conversation with him is interesting. Like, oh, the Jets have 2 bookend tackles. I guess it kind of depends on what you consider bookend. Do I see him being at like right now? Okay, he's an average-ish level player who could be your long-term tackle for 10 years. Fine. But I think categorizing him or putting him in a category with Membu, like, oh, it's Membu and Fashanu. Membu blows him out of the water in terms of his play in this past season, at least in my opinion. So to me, Fashanu really has to step up, because right now you tell me, hey, Fashanu, he needs that new contract. He wants to be one of the top 5 paid left tackles in the league. I'm not extending him. I need more from Fashanu. Listen, he's 21 years old, 22, raw to football, all that stuff. But I was disappointed with Fashanu last year. I think this is probably I'm more low on him than other Jets fans are. So he really needs to step his shit up, because pass protection was not pretty last year at all.
Yeah, that's very fair. We're not too separated on him, but I do have a different number 11. I have Mason Taylor here. And yeah, like we talked about with Sadiq, it'll be interesting to see how this lines up in terms of, what his stats look like, how many yards, how many touchdowns. But just within his role, I'm really confident in what Mason Taylor is going to do. Just with the opportunities he got last year, he was so reliable with the tight window catches that he had, the contested catches. His separation was even good at times, just in the middle of the field. He's never going to be like a field stretching guy. I think that's what Sadiq is here for. But just in terms of like the subtle separation at the top of routes and things like that. And I thought his blocking improved in the second half of the year. So this is just a really solid starting tight end. And again, we'll see what that looks like in terms of snaps, what his production is. But I trust that whatever he's asked to do, he's going to do it well. So I think this is a solid spot for him for me.
Yeah, I was, like coming out of LSU, he looked like a guy who was like a reliable receiver, wouldn't get you much yak, was an okay pass protector, but really bad run blocker for the most part. And last year, again, I don't have the numbers or whatever it may be, but he seemed to be plus in both of those categories, pass blocking and run blocking. He really, really impressed me. And then, I know he had 6 or 7 drops at the end of the season, but even if you just go back and actually watch this highlight reel, because it's probably in the background of your phone or whatever it is, like look at how many contested catches and off targets this guy had that he had to haul in. And like quite literally his only receiving touchdown last season was from Breece Hall. Like his quarterback play was horrific. So when you look at the talent on the Jets roster in terms of like evaluating, Mason Taylor or AD Mitchell or Garrett Wilson or whatever it may be, you have to grade it on a curve because of how bad the quarterbacks were for the Jets last year.
Right.
And Mason Taylor was legitimately very impressive. So many contested catches. So to me, he's still tight end 1. And I think that Sadiq is like that tight end 2, receiver 4, H-back, fullback type of guy. But like in terms of snap count, I think that Mason Taylor will still out-target him or outpace him with snaps. And I think that people are overlooking Mason Taylor a little bit last year because people tend to, like I say all the time, just hump stats and let me Google him. 400 yards, not good. But like if you actually go back and watch him rep by rep, I was very impressed by Mason Taylor last year. Young player. I think he'll only continue to ascend, and he might not have the athletic ability to be a top 5 tight end or anything like that. But I think he could be a very good tight end for a very long time for the Jets. So I am very high on Mason Taylor. And what he did last year. So he's a few spots higher for me, where you had him 11th, right?
Yeah.
So I'll go to my 10th first, and I'll let you take the lead on a few of these next ones. I've been going first, but 10 to me is Briggs. I like Briggs quite a bit. It's just I need to see it for another year, right? And part of him being so high is like I kind of in the middle ground here, where like I think he could be higher in this season if he really takes a step forward, but it's also only his second season. But with that being said, like really impressive second season for him. I know you probably have stats either off the top of your head or on your computer where like, only what 20, 30 tackles and 4 sacks. So it doesn't look like anything crazy, but the pressure numbers were there, like the run stop, whatever. I'm sure all that stuff was really good for him. And he was legitimately very impressive, but he's my 10th player.
Yeah, so I have T'Vondre Sweat here at number 10, another defensive tackle. So, you know, he's a guy, we've had some defensive tackles on here who are run leading, but I think in Sweat's case, you're talking about kind of dominant run defense. So even if he's not the greatest pass rusher, it's enough run defense to where it's like, okay, he's tremendous at that. And it's not like he's a non-pass rusher either. I think for a guy who is 366 and is out there to eat up space as a run defender, he does give you solid pass rush juice relative to that. So for that reason, I have him 10th. But quickly, like on the Taylor conversation, the Sadiq pick it's going to be really interesting because Taylor's presence makes that such a fascinating pick, because in a vacuum, taking a tight end 16th is, you know, it's already pretty high for a position that's lower in value. And Sadiq is a guy who's more projection based rather than like a Tyler Warren, who's like, okay, this guy was dominant in college. So the fact that you already have a guy, and I know you don't draft based on need and all that, like, you know, Taylor could get injured tomorrow, but the fact that they did draft him second round last year and he didn't do anything to show that that was the wrong decision. And, you know, then you use kind of this surplus first round pick on Sadiq. It's definitely interesting. I mean, let's just say Sadiq has a high bar to clear to make that worth it in the long run. Doesn't have to do it this year necessarily, because like we talked about, there's a lot of mouths to feed. But I think you need a lot from him for that pick to be worth it. It is like, I don't want to sit here and criticize it too much yet because he hasn't played, and you know, this is a long-term process, and there's enough negativity about the Jets already. But it is a pretty ambitious pick, to say the least, the fact that they went that direction, given that they have Taylor. So we'll see how they make it work with the two of them.
Yeah, transparently, again, like I've been recorded for hours saying this stuff, so there's no point in going back on it. Like I wouldn't. Now, if you told me the draft went Omar Cooper 16 and then they traded up for Sadiq ended the first round, I'm like, okay. But real time, Sadiq at 16, I was not happy at all. And like people ask me like, okay, well, if you could go back and redo it exactly how you'd want it, it wouldn't be Omar Cooper and Sadiq. Even though I like ending up with those guys, it would probably be, if I could, again, my perfect world, it would have been Lemon at 16 and then trade up for like Basantis at 30, and then you lock down, you know, the interior of the offensive line a little bit more, which I think is the biggest weakness to have on the team right now. That not a lot of people are talking about. It's like Myers was brought in to be a backup last year, and now suddenly we're okay with him being a starter after he proved exactly what we thought of him, right? Like he's a low-end starter to a high-end backup. So why are we okay with just walking into the season with him as a starting center? So I'm hoping they add somebody, I don't know if whoever's out there, Graham Glasgow or Ethan Pochik or something can take that spot. But yeah, interesting. So Sweat's your 10th. My 9th, which you already hit on, is and I'll let you go first after this, I guess. Mason Taylor is my 9th player, just because of like lack of targets and maybe lack of a role. I have him a little bit lower than I think he can even be, but you kind of already hit on it and we talked about him quite a bit. So I don't need to put much more into it, but yeah, Mason Taylor is my 9th.
Yeah, and I got Olu here at number 9, couple spots higher than you. I think I still have some optimism that just because of the traits and the potential that there's going to be a leap there. And he's kind of on the younger end. He's still going to be 23 on opening week. He only started the half season as a rookie. So I'm still holding on a little bit to the fact that there could be a leap there. He'll figure some things out technically, but it is definitely alarming, like you said, that a lot of the issues are just kind of like consistent, and they were there from year 1 to year 2.
It's been happening for 4 years.
So
4 years.
It does make you wonder, is anything going to change, or is this just who he is? But I'm hoping that there's a leap there. So that's why I have him a little bit higher. I even considered putting him like top 5 and just really betting like, okay, year 3, he's going to put it together. But I think your reviews have kind of highlighted like there are consistent things here that you could blame the O-line coach or the lack of experience or whatever. But at some point, it's just you gotta fix that, and it hasn't happened yet. So, but I think he's at the very least like an above average starting left tackle, just based on traits that he has. So that's why I have him here.
Yeah, it's a thing where, again, like, so after they drafted him, I went back and I forget if he was a junior or whatever he was when he was drafted. Let's just say he's a junior for simplicity's sake. I went back, watched his sophomore season, his junior season, obviously his freshman or his rookie season and his sophomore season. And the problems have been pretty consistent with him. So does he get better than he is right now? And again, what I think he is right now is average. So again, even below average, in some games he's really frustrating to me. So I'm really hoping he improves, but I can't lump him and Membo into the same conversation, where I think Membo can legitimately be an all-pro. And I think Fashanu, again, if you told me he was average this year, I would not be. That's kind of where I expect him to be. But I'm hoping for more because of the youth, because of the age, and just hoping he improves. It's just, hey, I've been saying the same stuff for 4 years with him, and it hasn't improved much. Again, if anything, I think his pass pro might have even regressed a little bit in the 2025 season. I'm actually curious, like his 24 numbers versus 25 numbers. But he was my 11th player. Who is your 8th player? I'm going to go with, it's probably Briggs. We're kind of Briggs.
Number 8 here. I have on the defensive line, I got Will McDonald here in the 8th spot. So I think the guys above I feel more certain about. Still, where is Will McDonald? What's his role going to be? Is his run defense going to progress? The pass rush numbers went down last year, but then obviously the film kind of contradicted that there was any sort of decline. And that was more like circumstantial based on the coverage behind him. So still high on him. I think he's in a well above average pass rusher, but I still want to see, like, can he be just definitively great? Because I think he has that in him. And then just in the run game, I'd still like to see, like, can we be competent to the point where, he's a 3-down player, there's no question about it, and that pass rush is not anything that you feel less about because of other issues.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know you've probably seen this on Twitter, but like I'm going to put up plays where, again, there's context needed in every conversation about receivers, DNs. How much time did they have to get rid of the ball? How quickly did they win? Were they targeted when they were open? Whatever it is, like there's plenty of context. And I think I said it on Twitter again. This is more general, but like, if you were to put Will McDonald on an average team last year, the Patriots, where they're up in games and teams couldn't immediately get rid of the ball because Jets linebackers couldn't pick up a crosser, whether it be play action or not, for their lives. So I think Will McDonald on a normal team last year probably has 12, 13 sacks. Like, I think that's how productive he was in terms of his wins. So I'm just going to put up some highlights on the screen of, and this is specifically, I made this very specifically. These are all 3-step drops and the ball is out. So all of these wins, if the ball were to just be held for an extra tick, he probably gets there and gets a sack, where in normal defenses, you'd see that. So I'll play that for the people who want to watch that. If you're listening on a podcast, whatever, you can go and watch or just look it up on my Twitter. But like, there were so many examples of Will McDonald winning where the ball was out, again, pretty much immediately because of just how bad this defense was. So people will say like, oh, 8 sacks and 4 of them only came in one game. But I'll bring up the point of like, okay, well, what about all the times where he won pretty much immediately, but the ball was out because the defense just sucked, So I think he's a very good pass rusher right now. And again, like to me, him versus Bailey, like I think Will McDonald is a higher pass rush ceiling than Bailey. And just breaking it down into like 2 categories of like burst and then like bend and flexibility type stuff. I think that Bailey is a 9 out of 10 in terms of his burst and all that stuff. I don't think he's a 10 out of 10. I think he's a 9 out of 10. Will McDonald in that category is probably a 7 out of 10. But then you talk about like bend and flexibility. Will McDonald's probably a 9 out of 10, where Bailey's like a 2 out of 10 in that category. So you're talking about like absolute pass rush ceiling. I think Will McDonald, again, on a normal team, whatever it may be, he could be mid-teens to even upper teens in sacks in some years. Where Bailey, I think he'll be in the lower 10s most years. But with that being said, I do think Bailey could be at least an okay run defender, where Will McDonald can never be that. So they're different players. But Will McDonald won quite a bit last year, and the ball was just out immediately. So, but with that being said, I have him in the same spot. I have him in my 8th spot. And then I'll just give it away here. My 7th is Tavondre Sweat. I think he's just as good of a run defender as Will McDonald is as a pass rusher, but he gives you more as a pass rusher than Will McDonald does as a run defender. So he's 1 spot higher.
Gotcha.
I think the Jets made out like bandits in that trade, in my opinion, just because I was very disappointed in JJ's previous season, coming off of an injury or not. I just was not impressed by the pass rush or even the run defense. I think took a step back, and that's not revisionist history. I did the review and I had all the plays recorded and I was going to put it out there. I was very disappointed to clear up $10-ish million in cap space, get an extra year of control, and in my opinion, get a better player and a better fit for the system. That was an awesome trade for the Jets, and I think he's going to be legitimately a very good player and a guy who can rush the passer a little bit. So now the problem is, not going to give you a ton in the pass game, but he can give you some. But how many reps does he play? 50% of the reps. So does he have enough chance to make an impact there? So like, I really did struggle with Sweat and McDonald because they are guys who are one-dimensional, whereas a one-dimensional player in Phillips, I put 10 spots below these guys, so it's a little bit hard to rank some of these guys. But yeah, McDonald 8, Sweat 7 for me. And I think we're going to have this really similar top 6. I'm going to assume, is Briggs your 7?
So here at number 7, I have Demario Davis.
Okay.
I think he gives you a really high floor. He was still one of the best linebackers last year. You're just waiting to see, like, is this going to be the year where he falls off and really smacks into the wall? I don't think he is going to fall that far. I think he'll still be a very good, like, top 10-ish to 15 type of linebacker in the league. So I got him right here. And also, like, on the Will McDonald topic with the highlights you were just showing, there were a lot of holds drawn in there as well. He was really good in that regard. And like those,
the last
don't get
4
counted.
or 5 were all holds.
Yeah, and those don't get counted as sacks, but they're essentially the same thing. And they often cancel out a good play behind it. So like, the football stats are really weird. It's just, you can't. All sports, they could be misleading to some degree, but there's just so much context in every football. There's 22 guys on the field and 2 coaches who have a massive amount of responsibility in how the play turns out. So there's just so many factors. It's just hard to say, like, sack good, no sack bad, and just like that's kind of because when you look at it that way, like, how many sacks did you get, or like how many touchdowns, how many yards, then you're implying that every play they did not, like in McDonald's case, every play you didn't get a sack is negative.
Was a bad play.
That's kind of what that type of analysis implies. And when you actually watch the game, that's never the case. You got to evaluate them based on what did they do within their role, what was asked of them, what they could control. And obviously that requires more effort, more time watching it, and all of that, but that's really the only way you could truly understand it, is if you do have that context. So
there's context, because we could boil it down to something as simple as, and obviously it's much more complex than this, which is the point, but like, it could be as simple as, okay, Gino, just in a vacuum, you're looking at one pass that game. One pass, 0 for 1 interception. Oh, Gino, that was a bad pass. That one bad pass, it was an angle route to Genty, who then dropped the ball and it's a pick. Is that Gino's fault? So like, there's so much context that goes into a football game. So look up Will McDonald and say, oh, only 8 sacks. No, not a lot of sacks equals bad. Same thing with, and I show people a lot for plenty of things, but like even Inez Cooper, big man, good run blocker, needs work in pass protection. Couldn't be farther from the truth. He's so much better as a pass protector than a run blocker. Same thing with Membu. And you know what Membu was, and I said this 1,000 times. The reason that Membu was thought of as being a higher run blocker was quite literally one thing. I can almost guarantee it. It's because a bunch of people who don't really look into this shit saw a 4 or 5 play cut up of him playing Oklahoma where he buried guys. And now suddenly he's a better run blocker than he's a pass blocker because of a 5 play sample size of a season where you play how many ever hundreds of reps, right? So that's what we try to do at Best of JetX is provide context instead of like the really shallow bullshit evaluations, and I appreciate that. You know that I appreciate that about you as a stat guy. You could say like, yeah, there's more needed than just these fucking stats, like there's a lot more into it. So nonetheless, next, so you had Davis at 7. Who is your 6? Briggs has to be coming up soon, unless he's in your top 5, which is
he's coming up at some point, but it's not the 6th spot. I have Joe Tippmann here in my number 6, which another interesting player to rank because 6 does feel a little high in the sense that I don't think this is necessarily an elite guard yet, but I guess the Jets are just that limited in top end talent to where we got used to a couple years ago. We were at remember 24, we were at number 10 and we're like, wow, this team is so good. We got like Tyron Smith as our 10th player or whatever it was. And now it's not quite that point as of right now, because a lot of the guys you're hoping can be that, like your Baileys, your Ponds, like you still want to see them develop first. So that's kind of why I think Tippmann, if it feels high, but also, this is a guy who I think is a very good guard. I think he's better and more valuable at guard than he is at center. So kind of like a silver lining that he got moved there with the AVT injury. Highly athletic. I think his pass protection has come along really well. So yeah, I like him. He's not. I'm not saying he's elite being here, but I think top 10 type of guard.
I think this is where you get into like for me in my notes, like this is where you get into like the Pro Bowl level conversation. Like I think he could be a Pro Bowl level guard this year. I agree with you. I think he's a better guard than a center, and you can kind of thwart not just thwart, but like completely cancel out some of the snap issues that he had. That might not be like. I don't know if in statistics those are counted or whatever, but they were clearly evident that he struggled with snapping. So you take that away from him. And I think he's a much better guard, or he was a much better guard in 2025 than Fashanu was a left tackle, even though left tackle is more important. But yeah, to me, Tippmann's easily the best Jets, or the second best Jets offensive lineman. So he's my 6th as well. I'll go with my 5th. And again, this is where I think you could start to talk about like Pro Bowl level players. Obviously, depending on the Pro Bowl vote, whatever, it's kind of stupid anyway. This is my 5th. My 5th is Breece Hall. This is where I have him. Again, I think he's in the 8 to 12 range of running backs. He had a very, very bad year in 24. There's really no way to sugarcoat that. It was awful in terms of fumbles, in terms of drops, in terms of vision, just falling down with pressure. Like there was really not a lot of good that he did in 2024. 2025, though, he definitely bounced back quite a bit. I think he's a solid running back, but I don't think he's an elite running back. So, again, Pro Bowl level player. If instead of the 8th best running back, he could have a really good couple games and string out a couple of 50-yard home run hits. Like then you're talking about the 4th or 5th, and he's a Pro Bowl player. Like I can see that for him. But yeah, he's my 5th overall player on the Jets team in 2026.
All right, so it ends here. I do have Juwan Briggs in the 5th spot. I'm buying in. I know you cited. It was only 1 year, kind of like a half year, really, after the Quinn Williams trade. But just production wise, it was so good that I have to buy in that it's real, because this is a guy who you traded for just because of run defense, basically, to be a run stuffer. And then he comes out in the second half of this season. He basically is on par with Chris Jones and Jeffrey Simmons in their own tier for all of the pass rush categories, like pressures, pass rush win rate, and all of that stuff that I think is more important than just how many sacks you get. And even before he stepped up into the bigger role, he was kind of showing those flashes. He just wasn't playing as much. And then once he did, the trade happened and he was starting, and it was just weekly. It wasn't like one big game. Every single week he was getting
Very
really
consistent.
impressive wins. Like he's quick off the ball. He had a lot of moves in his arsenal. Yeah, some of them looked Quinnen Williams inspired. So I'm betting on it just because the fact that he was so consistent for that half season from week to week, and the fact that this isn't even the thing you got him for. It's for his run defense, and that is still there. And like we talked about with a lot of these other D tackles between Sweat, Onyemata, Phillips, and then you throw McDonald in there on the edge, like a lot of one-dimensional, not one-dimensional, but, guys who lean heavily to one side with these defensive linemen. But Briggs is the one guy I look at on this defensive line and think he could be really good at both.
Yeah.
So I'm buying in. I think he's going to be a tremendous player.
Yeah, to me, I just had him 5 spots lower just because like a little bit more of like the prove it, like it was a short sample size. So yeah, no, I think he's really good, and it seems like he's not being discussed a lot when people talk about like the Jets defensive line and stuff. Like people talk about like certain lineups and it'll be like, oh, Onyemata over Briggs at DN for run situations. I'm like, did we not see how effective he was as a run defender too? Like, Briggs should be playing a lot of reps for the Jets. Like he could play, nose tackle in certain sets. He could play 3 tech. He could play big defensive end, So, Briggs is a dog. So, I like that you have him that high and have that much faith in him. You're gonna reveal the top 3 first, but again, I'm just gonna go again just because you have this player a little bit lower. So, you had him at 7. I have him at 4. Demario Davis.
Okay.
I still think he's a top 10 linebacker in this league. I'm not anticipating like the fall off of Tyron Smith because he doesn't have the injuries that Tyron Smith did. Great player, great leader, good in pass protection, really good as a pass defender, really good in run defense. Obviously in pass protection, I keep saying pass protection as a pass defender. You don't want him like one-on-one with an athletic tight end or anything like that, but like very good in his zones, knows where he's supposed to be, very good in the run game, an absolute dog, hits like a truck, so he's my 4th best player. And again, I think he could be a Pro Bowl level guy for the Jets.
Yeah. So going into my top 4 here, I have Minkah Fitzpatrick in the number 4 spot.
I'm so confused. Who are you missing that I do not? I'm so there's somebody that we're missing here.
Oh, there's someone top 3 who you said already.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I think is still a top end safety. What number is that? Top 5 to 10. I don't even know how you rank safeties at this point because like they don't really get interceptions as often as they used to. Like back in the day, it could be like Ed Reed would get 7 interceptions and Troy Polamalu would get 5,000 tackles or forced fumbles. But it's like, I don't know, safeties, kind of the way the game has changed. Safeties they're not deprioritized, but they just don't make as many big plays. So I don't really know how you rank them.
Yeah,
but I think in terms of just, does this guy do his job? I think he still does it really well in so many different ways, and you can move him all over the field. And, he might have no interceptions this year. He might have 1. I think it might go up because I anticipate he is going to go back to being more of like a center fielder as opposed to the Dolphins played him in the slot last year.
Me too.
We're using him in sort of like or more so a box role. I think he's going to move back this year and he'll get the chance to make more plays. It's not really like he got worse at being a ball hawk. It's just his role kind of changed. And then last year he had the 1 interception. He had a pick on the 2-point conversion that he returned. Yeah. And he had a couple fumble recoveries and a forced fumble. So he still has that nose for the ball. It's just his role kind of changed. So I think that could go up, but regardless, I just think he's a guy who, has great instincts, is so smart. And like for those reasons, his age doesn't really matter as much because I think he just knows how to get to the right spot and anticipates it. So he's going to be there. So I have him 4th here. I think let's say top 10 safety in the league.
Yeah, people talk about him like he's 45 though. It's weird. Like he's 29. I don't know. And again, I watched him. I didn't see the regression. There were some reps. He had like really good man reps on McConkey or Kincaid or whatever. To me, you play him deep as well because if he's going to play slot, like he's going to take some reps away from Pons there. I don't love that. And just in terms of like strictly, okay, strong safety, free safety, I feel more comfortable with him as the free safety and then having Belton or Moore in the box than I do him playing as a strong safety and having Cisco high, because I don't think you don't want Belton or Moore high. You just do not. So I'd rather get one of those guys in the field. And to me, you're playing Minka more at free safety. So he's my third player on this list, obviously. We're not obviously, I guess, at this point, but yeah, I still think he's a very, very good safety who just, again, it's a thing where, 29 years old, maybe he's slower. Maybe that's when you get more picks, like type in the stats, only one pick or whatever it was. He's bad. But no, there's obviously a lot more context needed than that. And he played the slot a little bit more because the Dolphins had some injuries and stuff. You're not going to use many picks there. I think he's still a very good player. So he's my third player, third best Jet. And I think he's in that Pro Bowl type range where I could easily see him making the Pro Bowl for the Jets this year.
Yeah, I think they're really.
This is Brees for you. That's the player he didn't mention.
Oh, here, number 3?
Maybe 2, but.
Number 3, I have. You're making me want to change my mind, but I do have Membu here in the third spot. I think he's going to make a Pro Bowl push this year. I was going to say, I think there are probably 5, let's say 6 Pro Bowl caliber players on this team. Like could they, however you define Pro Bowl, I think that is like a lower bar than All Pro. All Pro, I think, is like top 2 at your position. Pro Bowls maybe like top 6 to 8 or something. So like however you want to define it, I think Membu is on track to be that this year, and he could take another leap next year beyond where he is this year. It's just for a guy who's 21 years old as a week 1 starter and has all these athletic tools to come in and hit the ground running as fast as he did is just such a good springboard. It puts his ceiling so high moving forward, because that was probably the worst he'll be in the league, and he was a plus starting right tackle already. So I think you're going to see a big leap this year to Pro Bowl, borderline Pro Bowl, and then starting next year, I think there's not a reason to believe he's incapable of being maybe the best right tackle or one of the best, just because he has all of the physical tools, and then the technique that we saw as a rookie is there as well. So I think that's within striking distance for him.
Yeah, he's my 2. I do think he is even all pro potentially even this year, but I would probably say year 3 like you did, but very good as a pass protector. He could overset a little bit, and his right hand can land a little bit high sometimes, but overall, some of the techniques he used for a rookie were very high level. I'm not going to get into all of it now because I don't, we only have a few minutes left before I have to leave for work. Sorry to keep you for longer than I expected, Nania.
No, you're good.
But some of the trap techniques and the cuff techniques and the overlaps, the little nerdy stuff I talk about with some of the some stuff you see from vets, but not rookies in their first year as a really young player, right? 20 years old, right? Or 21 years old, doing all the stuff he did was very, very impressive. So if you told me, hey, a flash forward a year and Membu was the best player on the Jets in 2026, I don't think you're crazy. Obviously, you have met 3 and I have met 2, so that's not crazy, regardless. But just to kind of emphasize it, he could easily be the Jets' best player. I think after this year, you could look at him as a top 5 to 3 right tackle in the league. And if he's a top 3 right tackle in the league, then he's better than Garrett Wilson, who is he going to be a top 10 or top 5 receiver this year? I'm not so sure. But that's my list. It's Membu 2, Garrett Wilson 1. Obviously, at that point, I think they're both all pro level type players. Very good. Garrett Wilson needs to win more consistently on his if Garrett Wilson can work more consistently on his releases, his hands, and not dropping balls at inopportune times and winning contested with consistency, I think he could be that top 5 guy. But my biggest thing with Garrett Wilson is releases are inconsistent, winning vertically inconsistent, contested catches a little bit inconsistent. Now I know there will be some guy who will tag me in the Garrett Wilson one-handed catch against the Texans, but it's about consistency and not just the flashes of it. So he's a very good player, an absolute dog, a player who is not a diva at receiver, guy you want leading your team, has that competitive fire. I love Garrett Wilson. The number 1 player on the Jets for me. So I'm assuming your order is then Breece Hall 2 and Garrett Wilson 1.
Yep, that's how it tops out for me. And I admittedly do, after the way I talked about Membu, I do kind of regret not having them swapped and maybe Hall below Fitzpatrick, maybe even Briggs too, because where do I put Hall among running backs? Is he top 5? Probably
to me,
not.
8th or 9th best. So, 10th, maybe?
Somewhere in the back end of that top 10. But I guess my justification here was Fitzpatrick, older end. Again, not to overblow it. He's not 38. He's 29. But maybe on the back end, Membu's still up and coming. Hall's more like right in his prime. So that was kind of maybe my thought process as to why I put him up here.
Mm-hmm.
A little more certainty compared to someone going down or someone who's still going up. But obviously a really good running back. I want to see the more explosive plays. I feel like last year was his most consistent season from down to down. He got downhill better short yardage, just more consistent chunk gains, but he did not have the top end plays. So hopefully that's not a sign of like lingering injuries. He just doesn't have that anymore. And it's something that's due to come back, and just, circumstantially it didn't happen because loading the box, the pass game, whatever. So if he could be as consistent as he was last year, add in the explosive plays that he usually had in the previous seasons, I think he could be that top 3 to 5 running back. And then Garrett, number 1, I think it's like a pure talent thing. Cause again, like, is he as high of a receiver as we think Membu could be a running back, or even Minka at safety? It's debatable. There are still some things he can improve, but just like pure talent, like you look at the player and think how much of a difference maker could they be? I think it has to be Garrett Wilson, number 1. So that's my justification for that.
Yeah, I think based on the way you spoke about them, like saying that Membu could be a Pro Bowl or all pro level player, like in year 3, should probably flip at least 2 and 3, but I can't, obviously that's your list. The chat did not fill up because the World Cup is on. Nobody cares about the Jets right now. The Knicks are on, so I really don't have a lot to respond to. Here, I'll just hit them quickly because I literally have 5 minutes. We're going to be late to work. So is a reversion to the mean in line for Sherwood, or was the contract year the outlier? I would say the contract year is a little bit of the outlier. I do not expect him to be a $15 million linebacker, like play up to that level in the upcoming years. I do think he'll be cut after this season. Again, Nania lightning round. So any response to that?
No, I think like we said, realistically, you're hoping for that middle ground and then probably cut after that.
David says people didn't like your Abdul Carter tweet. Yeah, every time I tweet anything that's a little bit obscure or anything like political, people get crazy. I wasn't even taking a political stance. I'm just saying that Abdul Carter did not help the situation when he could have handled it like a man and reached out to him. If I have a problem with you, Nani, like I'm not going to dunk on you on Twitter because I know you personally. I would reach out and be like, Nani, what is your opinion? I'm not going to quote tweet you, be like, you're an idiot. So that's my only point. It wasn't about taking a political stance. It was about saying he's a bad teammate. I think Abdul Carter's an idiot. Everything he's done since he's been drafted, I think he's just he's dumb as a bag of rocks. So I don't like Abdul Carter at all. So yeah, people didn't take to it well. Bandwagon fans, World Cup has a shit ton of bandwagons. Yes, Nania and myself both admittedly bandwagons. Gino could put up 4,200 yards. I think he could. It's just the thing of from Billy. I think they'll run the ball a little bit more than that. To get him up that high. If they both play well this year, do you extend Sweat and AD Mitchell? They're both second-round draft picks coming off of their 3rd season, so I think it would be in the cards. And you don't have to pay them. Like if they had a good year 3 and 4, you have to pay them more because then they're stacking more years where now they're a little bit more unknown. So if they have one good year, you probably have to pay them less. So maybe it's better to do it earlier than late with them and you get a better price. So I would say yes. If they both have good seasons, I would extend them both.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like if Mitchell has a solid like role playing season, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, like lock him in while he's at that price in that role before he really explodes. I think maybe you could get value on that.
Credit to Muji from David here. Just saying that we picked up. Yeah, how do we pick up I don't know what the conditions are of that 7th round pick, but Irv Charles is going to be cut. We get a pick for him. Nadi was going to be pick for him. He's done really well with that. What's up, Dino? Cisco, I appreciate you. We typically fill up the chat a little bit more, and I hit the chat a lot. Cisco, I don't know if you've been in here before, but this show is different with the top 25. I couldn't hit the chat as much, and obviously nobody cares about the Jets right now. Nobody's here, but it's okay. Nice piece from Nania on Seth Ryan. Oh, I work midnight tonight. Maybe I gotta read that one. I have not seen that. Any what's that one about?
Yeah, talking a little bit about some of the things he could take over from the Lions and his potential to maybe bring something as the passing game coordinator. So, just I feel like he gets talked about just because he's Rex Ryan's son, but he is the passing game coordinator of this team. So it's worth examining what type of impact he'll have.
Last comment from Connor, our very own, just getting here, Joe. I hope you reminded Mr. Nania that Mr. 5 first-round draft picks has 9 combined points these past 2 games, and I think your response is going to be the same as David. And Mr. 5 first-round draft picks have to be an NBA champion, right?
There
like,
go. Whatever helps Connor sleep better at night. I know he probably struggles to sleep because there's a lot of schoolwork, and then you throw in a basketball team that's completely irrelevant on top of that. Yeah. So, like, if Mikal Bridges being a lockdown defender, an NBA champion who just so happens to not
was uber efficient earlier in the playoffs too.
Yeah, if that makes it a little bit easier to hit the pillow and get to sleep. I mean, whatever
realistically, like we control them until what, like 2032, whatever it is. But like those picks are all going to be like the 28th, 26th pick.
Those picks some guy in Connor's class right now. Those are his classmates.
Yeah, no, and it sucks with the Nets too. Like I said earlier, it's like they traded for those picks back from the Rockets, and you end up getting Iggy or Dioman and whoever it's going to be, another like reincarnated Cam Thomas or whatever you're going to get at pick 6 this year, which is actually in 12 days. I'm hoping the Nets can land. I don't know, dude. I have no hope. Like whatever. Who even cares about the Nets?
Mikal, but just quickly, I'll throw it in there. But playoffs, he's shooting 56% from the field, 67 from 2, 96 from the line. So I feel like I would take that.
Yeah, I can't hate on him as a person either. But nonetheless, appreciate you guys. Again, little off-season topic type stuff, top 25. I'm not going to hit my honorable mentions because I quite literally do not have time. I will be posting these as podcasts, hopefully, if everything works out correctly, so you guys can listen to them as podcasts and not just the YouTube. I have a shit ton of reviews still coming out. There's still like 20, 30 to drop probably, or whatever the hell it is. So go and check those out. Nani is going to be looking for topics to write about. Yes. Scratching the bottom of the barrel here in June. We do need to see a stat prediction article from Nania, so maybe that's an idea for a bigger one right now. But any last words, anything coming up, or any shout outs? CYJ podcast has just exploded. Never happening again.
It imploded. It's complete. I can't promise anything ever again. Yeah. That those days are gone. Maybe it comes back. Okay. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I wake up tomorrow. Maybe I don't. Nothing's guaranteed. 0-0. Let's go, Knicks. That's all I gotta say.